United States, blue-collar and tough, with cultures and attitudes distinct from the snootier South and London in particular. During my childhood, Mirfield had a population of around 9,000. Along the river stood several weaving sheds, a humble term for what were, in fact, textile mills that rose 4 or 5 stories high. My mother Gladys worked in one of them. The rest of our local economy was agricultural, with farms that grew corn, wheat, Brussels sprouts, and kale. This kale was not destined for fancy salads. It was grown solely to feed livestock, which must have been why the Mirfield cows always looked so healthy. Their milk was delivered not in cartons or bottles, but in large pails on a rickety cart drawn by an old horse. The dairyman ladled the milk by hand into my mother's large kitchen jug. It was often still a little warm when it arrived, and it was delicious. I don't believe pasteurization was a part of that process. Bottom Field, my refuge, was one of several fields in the area that were left unplanted, reserved for occasional use by grazing cattle and sheep. This field was also the site of parish church festivals, summer bring and buy sales, brass band concerts, and football and cricket matches. In September 1945, when I was 5 years old, it was where the town's adults held a VE, Victory in Europe, picnic celebration for us children. In certain corners of Bottom Field, the grass grew tall. One of my private pleasures was to lie on my back among this grass and watch the clouds drift across the sky. At times they formed recognizable shapes, animals, castles, sailing ships, mountains. These were a marvelous tickler of my imagination and afternoon dreams. I had many flying dreams. I loved them. All I had to do to get airborne was gently flap my arms up and down. I would rise slowly and vertically, higher and higher, never fearful, until I reached a point where I maneuvered myself into a horizontal position. From there, I would swoop down, leveling out and flying fast just above the ground. Then I'd suddenly lift up my head, climb back up again until I was flying between the clouds. For some reason, I never went above the clouds in these dreams. Maybe this was because Mirfield boys like me weren't expected to have lofty ambitions. Certainly none that would ever take me into outer space. I was born on July 13, 1940, on a Saturday afternoon around 5 o'clock. My father was away at war. My arrival was slightly delayed because my mother's midwife, having examined my mother that morning, decided that I was not yet ready to appear and declared that she was going to a movie matinee at the Vale Cinema, half a mile away in the centre of Mirfield. But not long after the midwife's departure, my mother's water broke, and I was on my way. I suspect that, having heard the midwife say that she was going to the pictures, I had decided that I wanted to know what movie she was seeing, who was in it, and who directed it. A neighbour of my mam's volunteered to go to the cinema to fetch the midwife, but my mother, a kindly soul who loved the movies herself, refused this offer, saying that she could hang on until the midwife got back. So, there I was, eager to get out, but delayed by my mother's determination to let the midwife enjoy her movie until the end. I like to think that it was then, patiently waiting in the birth canal, that I came to understand that movies are important, and that acting was to be the main purpose of my life. That is, as soon as it could get started. In any event, my mother and I held on.
To keep listening to this audiobook, I've left you a link in the description so you can do it, at no cost thanks to Audible's 30-day free trial.